It is the Walkthrough Game Day Show presented by Country Roads Air Duct Cleaning. Take me home to comfort. I am Schuyler, Callihan. That is Eugene, Napoleon. And my goodness, my friend, it is already here. The final home game of the 2023 season. West Virginia taking on an old Big East foe. I don't want to say they're a rivalry, Gene, because this is not a rivalry. Cincinnati wants to talk about it as if it could be a rivalry one day, and I get it, the proximity. But look, it's not a rival. We'll get back into that here in just a minute. But we're going to break down that. We're going to make our pickems. Gene's going to have his fire me up speech. And but first, we're going to take a look around the Big 12 and talk about Don Nehlen, who's going to be immortalized this weekend. But also, I want to give you a second here, Gene, because you're actually wearing one of your new clothing pieces here that you just came out with, and I want to give you the opportunity to speak on it and let the fans know where they can purchase their items at.
My guy, I appreciate you, Scholar. Thank you so very much. Yeah, I'm really proud of this, man. I really am. RB33 is something that I had in the back of my head for some years now. Obviously, RB standing for running back. Obviously, 33 standing for my jersey number. So you put them together, RB33. It's a whole collection line. So the cool thing is, like, this is one of the varsity jackets right here. So, I mean, you got the 33 on the side. On this side, in the back, it actually says Napoleon across my back, you know, with the big 33 on the back, and it's a signature line. So it's already signed. Yeah, it's pretty
There
cool.
you go.
Underneath this, I do have the jersey. I have
Oh, he's got the whole display today. Okay.
I got a fan jersey, and the difference is obviously the combat jerseys are the actual real football jerseys. Those are coming too. But I have the fan jerseys, which come in different colors. So that's pretty cool. I got hoodies that's coming with this in tri-colors. It's really, really cool. I'm real excited about this line. Now, the company that I did a deal with, the CEO of that company, James Cherry, we call him JC, you know, it's a blessing when you have an idea and a concept that you could put together with people that actually know how to do business. Let me say that. Let me first say that. But Optimum, you know, they're a company that it's a full-fledged Optimum Human Performance. It's a company that they do everything. It's not just the clothing, but they actually do different events. They do different, clinics, self-defense, all that stuff. Scholar, it's amazing. But my deal with him, it happened over a few months ago. He knew what I wanted to do with the concept of RB33, and here we have it. So I'm gonna give you my link.
Yeah,
So
we'll
that you
throw it
can,
in the description. Yeah, we'll throw
I'll
it here in
send
the
you,
YouTube description. So if you want to
yeah,
purchase the jersey, the
absolutely.
varsity jacket, whatever it is that Gene's got, you know how
Yep.
to get to it.
All you gotta do is click that link and you can order and we'll have it shipped right to you. And I want to thank everybody in advance because trust me, what a great time to do this too, because it's holidays. It's the
Yes.
holidays, Scholar. Christmas is coming, and you too will look really good. Yeah. That RB33, whatever you decide to order, varsity jacket, jersey, freaking hoodies, whatever, t-shirts. I think you will look really good in one of these, Scholar. Matter of fact, I know you would.
Hey, I mean, that 33 would probably make me look a lot better than a lot of the other things I got in my closet. So, but and hey, this is your optimum opportunity too here because not only can you get that, but you can also get an autographed picture from Mr. Eugene Napoleon himself too by correctly picking all 5 games in our weekly pick'ems that we do at the end of the show. We've already had a couple of winners so far, and you can add your name to that list as well. So let's go ahead and dive into some of the action that happened around the Big 12 last week. We don't really need to talk about this West Virginia game, right? I mean, it was a disaster. It was an embarrassment, 59-20. But some of the other games around the league, Texas Tech pulling off the upset of Kansas 16-13. Jason Bean, their backup / starting quarterback now, went down earlier in that game. So Kansas was down to their third stringer. They still almost found a way to win that game. Kansas State just absolutely pummeled Baylor. It's been a long season for the Bears. They lose 59-25. UCF with arguably the stunner, not only the Big 12 last week, but of college football, beating, and I mean beating Oklahoma State 45-3. Cincinnati, this week's opponent for West Virginia, they get their first Big 12 win. I'm putting this in air quotes. You can't see me because I have the graphic screen up here, but air quotes around the first Big 12 win. This is essentially an American Athletic Conference win for them. So they're still technically looking for that first real Big 12 win, but they knock off Houston 24-14. Texas survives against TCU 29-26, and then Iowa State beats up on BYU 45-13. So, Gene, where's your thoughts taking you on last week's results here? Good, bad, ugly, everything in between?
Everything in between, but I'm telling you right now, I was really surprised to see what happened to Oklahoma State. I'm telling you, that shocked me. And it just goes to show you any given Saturday, somebody can be beat. I always say this to people that listen, they got scholarships too. So no matter who's playing, but that really shocked me. Oklahoma State got beat soundly in every phase of the game. And I think out of everything I watched, out of every college football game I watched, that was the most surprising. If you would have told me that at the end of the day that would have wound up being the score and they got handled like that, I would have said, nah, no way. So I think that was the most surprising to me.
Yeah, it has to be. I mean, Oklahoma State was 10-point favorites, I believe, in this game. And even then, it still kind of felt a little low. But, I mean, you just look at how Oklahoma State had kind of really ascended since that loss to South Alabama. And it's just like they just kept finding ways to get better. They got better. And it became to a real point heading into last week's game. You're like, man, this is a team that's going to win 10 games, go to a New Year's Six bowl. And they could still get to a New Year's Six, but that was just that is to me. There's all these people out there, Gene, that say momentum is not a real thing. I call BS on that because this is the exact example to show that it's true. UCF got out to a very early lead. I think they scored on their first drive. It was 7-0. Oklahoma State went 3 and out, I believe, or threw a pick or something there. UCF went up 14 or 17-0. And then the rain came, and it was just pissing down rain. Like you couldn't even see the screen hardly. And it was already well into UCF's favor at that point, but it just felt like one thing after another, and Oklahoma State could never get Ollie Gordon going. And I'm telling you, momentum is a very real thing. At least to me, it is. I don't know about you.
No, I agree with absolutely. Momentum is a big thing in anything and everything that you do, especially when you're talking about competitor. When you are in a competitive nature, momentum, that really does swing the pendulum, especially in sports. So, that's a real thing. I agree with you 100%.
Yeah, in Texas, again, they survived their scares. So they're hanging around for the college football playoff. Still, obviously, they're sitting at the top of the Big 12 states, which we'll go ahead and take a look at now. And this is, again, just shows the parity that has kind of been created here in the Big 12 with all of these teams just bunched up there towards the top. You've got 4 teams that are sitting at 5-2. Tied for second place, right behind Texas. You've got 3 teams at 4-3. That's West Virginia, Texas Tech, and Kansas. I mean, there's already 7 teams that are bowl eligible. And Chris and I were talking about this when we recorded our show yesterday, that there's a possibility that 10 of the 14 Big 12 teams could get to a bowl game. Gee, there's not even that many slots for the Big 12. They're going to have to go to some other bowl game that's not directly affiliated with the Big 12. And I mean, that's happened before, but that just shows you how competitive this league is. It may not have that top dog, especially once Texas and OU leave, but this thing is competitive from top to bottom. And we're going to get to Cincinnati here in a little bit, who's technically the worst team in the league, but they're really not that bad.
Well, whenever you say really not that bad, there's a lot of ways I can go with that. So I'll say this. I've always liked Cincinnati as a program prior to them coming in, into our conference, but I do understand this. It's going to take some time. They've always been a scrappy program.
Yeah.
So I kind of liken them to BYU. I have a lot of respect for those kind of programs. And I think I'm looking forward over a course of a few years to see where they develop and how well they develop in recruiting and all that kind of stuff. From top to bottom, when you look at as many teams as you just said that has the potential to go to a bowl game, dude, that might be just as competitive as any other league.
It
Like,
has
think
to be.
about that. So I don't care what people think or what they say. The bottom line is if you're going to a bowl game and you're playing into late December, early January, then you have a successful program. Period. You're bringing money into your university, right? Getting bowl money brought into you, then you have a successful program. That means for the freaking season, you put more money in your university's bank account than money coming out. So for
Yeah.
me, that's success, right? And I think Cincinnati, although this year is not going to be their year, obviously, like you said, they are at the bottom of the conference for now, right?
Technically,
Yeah,
they did just beat Houston, so technically,
yeah, give me that. But a year, 2 years, 3 years down the road, who knows where Cincinnati will be? But
or
also,
any of these Big 12 newcomers.
a year, 2 years, 3 years, who knows where our Mountaineers will be? We will then be hopefully at the top of the Big 12 mountain doing what we do. You understand? So I'm optimistic on all of it, except for Cincinnati beating West Virginia.
Yeah, that might just about do a certain head coach in, but we're gonna get to all this stuff.
Get there.
But yeah, I mean, this is a really competitive league, and what Oklahoma and Texas leaving does though is it does open the door for two teams to kind of make that jump and be towards the top of the league. If you look at the
Right.
history, West Virginia's arguably the most successful program in the Big 12 history wise. So
Sure.
they should be in that top echelon of the Big 12. But it's going to be interesting to see how this Big 12 race shakes out. And again, this is the word of the day here, and it's not that grand of a word, but technically, West Virginia is not eliminated mathematically from the Big 12 race. Now,
Right.
obviously there's a list about this long that needs to happen and then some for the Mountaineers to actually get to Dallas, but mathematically they're still alive. So Texas looks like they're in a good spot. If they just win one of these final two games, they're going to be in. And Oklahoma State, they're going to be in the mix. So there's a lot of teams there's so many scenarios. That's why I didn't even want to get into it last week, because there's so many ways this thing can play out. But the one thing I do want to talk about today, and we can't gloss over this by any means, because what Don Nehlen meant to this program, I don't think can be talked about enough. We could honestly dedicate a whole episode to Coach Nehlen, and I'm pretty sure we actually have a couple of times. But Coach Nehlen's going to be immortalized this weekend at the Cincinnati game. They're going to hang his name inside the stadium, and they're going to have a special ceremony for him at some point throughout the game. Career record of 202, 128 and 8. I mean, obviously took West Virginia to the national championship game, which you played in 1988. He also had another perfect season in 1993. This guy single-handedly, in my opinion, really set the standard for what West Virginia football should be, the expectations. I mean, heck, the dang man even created the flying W. So, Gene, just give us your thoughts on Coach Nehlen being immortalized, what he meant to you, what he means to this program, and I'll just give you the floor here because you spent a lot of time with this guy, and I feel like you're the perfect man to talk about it.
I appreciate you, man. Thank you, Schuyler. As a matter of fact, I spoke to Coach last week, and unfortunately, I thought I would be able to make it into Morgantown, but I kind of miscalculated. My wife's home game is actually on Saturday, so I'll be there, on her campus supporting her. Coach Nehlen, you can't even put it into words because, like you said, when you have someone who epitomizes the word discipline, being driven, working to make sure that everybody is doing what they're supposed to do, he's a man's man, right? So not only was he a great head coach, he turned out to be a great leader of men and a great mentor. So the older I get, I realize some of the attributes and some of the things that I learned from playing at WVU and being coached by Don Nehlen. I can't put words to it because everything about life's journey and everything he taught us as student athletes, it's like hand in glove when you get older. But
Yeah.
see, you don't see it until you get older. That's the beauty of having a coach and a man like him. Don Nehlen is a high character, uh, salt of the earth type individual. And he was more than just a football coach. So at the end of the day, when you look at someone who epitomizes what being a good human being is, that's Don Nehlen. So if you get that and you're blessed enough to get that wrapped up into a coach, you got yourself a winner all the way around. Because I speak of him in that light right now, because as I've gotten older, like I said, I know how important of a role he played in my life. I didn't see it then. Most 18 and 19, 17, 18, 19-year-olds, you're not going to see it then. The beauty of it is, my mother used to say, live long enough and life will show you, right? Well, if you have the right people in your life and you live long enough and they're still around, you need to give them their flowers and appreciate them because they've paved the way to help you become the man or the woman or the successful being that you are. That's Don Nehlen. And I'm going to end with this. Saturday, he deserves to be immortalized.
Long overdue.
Long overdue. I told him this last week. There need to be a freaking statue sitting outside the stadium.
Yes.
There needs to be a Don Nehlen statue. Although he's a humble man, he probably wouldn't want all of that hoopla. He deserves it. That should be the next thing that goes up, a Don Nehlen freaking statue sitting outside of our beautiful stadium. That's what should happen. Love you, Coach. Thank you so much. You did a lot for me, and I appreciate you.
Absolutely. Beautifully spoken. And I agree with that sentiment. I was actually just about to bring that up, that he deserves a statue out there, and maybe even going as far as naming the stadium and or field after him. We've seen all these other schools out there that name, literally Neyland Stadium at Tennessee. You have just a bunch of other ones that I can't even think that come to mind right now, but there's so many out there that are named after icons and legends, and Don Nehlen to WVU football fits that to a T. So
fits to a T. Boom, what is it? Boom Pick'em Stadium?
Oklahoma State, yeah.
Oklahoma State, right? Boom Pick'em, right?
Yeah.
So, like I said, people who are legendary of status for that university, that community, that state, whatever the case may be, well, Don Nehlen fits that to a T, and you're 100% right. Yeah, you're right. I agree.
And I want to mention this too. We're on a roll today with these plugs. Let me tell you, if you haven't checked out Relatively Sports yet with that guy right there, Eugene Napoleon, he brings on former WVU players and other former professional athletes and stuff. Usually we try to get one in every week. He's got a lot of interviews up with some of his former teammates, guys that played after him at WVU and even before him. And a lot of these guys played for Coach Nehlen. And we just did one with Gary Doc Basil, and it's up on YouTube on our YouTube page at Mountaineers Now. Go check it out. The one thing that I've learned, Gene, with all of these episodes that you've done with all these former players, and I've told you this many times, it's like you guys are cut from the same cloth. You really are. I mean, it's the same person, very humble, very genuine, very passionate about West Virginia, but also understanding what Don Nehlen meant to you guys and how he not only helped lead your career path for football, but even life after football too. So I think that's something that West Virginia fans definitely need to check out. Again, Gary Doc Basil was up this week. We've got a ton of other guys. KJ Harris stopped by, Mike Logan. The list goes on and on and on. There's been a lot of guys. Who else do we have just recently? I'm trying to remember.
I know Pat Randolph came on not too long ago. Of course, we had Chris Pecan. Of course, we had Big
Chris
Joe's, Brian
Jones. Yeah, Brian Jones React. He's came on twice. So
yeah,
we've got a ton.
I just hit, and it's funny you just said Logs. Logan's going to come on again. We're trying to reschedule right now for part two. Boom Smalls. We had two,
Yeah.
part one and part two with Big Small. Yeah, man. It's Calvin Phillips. Yeah, it goes down the line, man.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so definitely check that stuff out. It's really good episodes, really good content. Fun to watch Eugene and those other guys cut it up a little bit. So, anyways, Don Nehlen going to be immortalized this Saturday for the West Virginia Cincinnati game. Again, long overdue. Congratulations to Coach for a long, historic, successful career and all the things that he has done for not only the football program and the university, but the state as well. So we're going to go and take a quick break. And we come back, we're going to dive into this matchup between the Bearcats and the Mountaineers. But first, a word from our sponsor, Country Roads Air Duct Cleaning. Take me home to comfort.
Do you have dirty air ducts? Is your dryer vent plugged up? Well, odds are you probably don't know the answer to that question. Fortunately for you, we know a guy. Give Justin at Country Roads Air Duct Cleaning a call at 304-639-3395 for your free home evaluation. That's 304-639-3395. Country Roads Air Duct Cleaning. Take me home to comfort.
All right, it is time to welcome in them Cincinnati Bearcats, Gene, as Cincinnati rolls in here with just 3 wins on the season. But they've been playing decent football. They've actually had a couple of close games, some one-score games, and really when you dive into it, again, like I said earlier, they're not that bad of a football team. They just can't find a way to get the ball in the end zone. So we're going to dive a little bit deeper into this matchup. First things first, let's start off with Cincinnati's offense versus West Virginia's defense, okay? And when you look at what they want to do, they're very similar to West Virginia, what they want to do offensively. You ever seen that Spider-Man meme where it's like this guy is pointing to the other Spider-Man, he's pointing back? That's what the image that pops up in my head when I look at Cincinnati, because it is almost a carbon copy of what West Virginia does. They run the football well. They don't pass it well. They struggle a little bit on third downs, but they're kind of like in the middle of the pack, similar to West Virginia. Red zone has been a major issue, as I mentioned with them. That's the big downfall for them. They are 13th in the league at 74% in the red zone. So that's the key. Or one of the keys. Keep them out of the red zone. But if they get there, you don't really have to sweat it out all that much. They haven't had a whole lot of success, but they do run the football extremely well. They are second in the Big 12 Conference, even better than West Virginia, over 223 yards per game. That is a combination of Corey Kiner, who's a former LSU transfer, 885 yards on the season. Emory Jones, the quarterback, Miles Montgomery, who's been kind of banged up a little bit, but that's one of the most interesting things I think about this matchup in terms of this side of the ball is West Virginia. It's been a little while since they've faced a true dual threat quarterback. And I would probably say John Rice Plumlee at UCF was probably the most comparable to what they're going to see this weekend with Emory Jones. And if you remember, West Virginia was in on Emory coming out of high school. They were in on him pretty heavy, and then he committed to Ohio State. He decommitted. Florida got involved. He ended up landing down there in Gainesville. West Virginia was kind of an afterthought once those programs got involved. But it's interesting because he has ran the ball over 100 times this season, Gene, and that's going to be a major part for West Virginia this week. How are these linebackers going to answer to a quarterback that's mobile, that can make plays outside of the pocket, that can extend plays? Because, look, last week was not very good against Dylan Gabriel. It didn't matter what Oklahoma did, whether they were doing stuff off the RPO, play action, quarterback design run. It didn't matter what Oklahoma did. They were having a field day. So what do you think needs to happen for West Virginia's defense to get back on track and not look like the defense that was just tackling air last week?
Well, I'm going to be honest with you. It starts with playing with some type of discipline. You have to. And you got to get these guys to the ground. When you play against a true dual threat quarterback that can run it and throw it, you have to read your keys. And from a linebacker perspective, you got to make sure that you don't get sucked in on certain things. And each man has to do their job. That becomes a monumental task when you play against a true dual threat quarterback or a dynamic running back. You got to get them ground. You got to get them to the ground. That's number one. You got to tackle well. But the most important thing is everybody has to do their individual job. Because if you do that, you have a far better chance of being more successful getting these guys to the ground than you do if one, because a guy like him, one missed tackle can turn a short gain into a long gainer before you know it. And if you get 2 or 3 of those, watch out. Momentum.
Yeah.
We talked about it earlier in the show. Now the momentum swings their way, and you have a problem. So you got to play disciplined football, and you got to make sure that you read your keys and you don't overrun stuff, because that's a problem too. You create lanes and holes that don't need to be there. So I think if we play disciplined on the defensive side of the ball, Schuyler, I really think we'll be okay.
This is an interesting stat. And this is, again, why I think Cincinnati's really not that bad of a team, okay? Because they have actually outgained their opponents in 1, 2, 3, 4 of their last 6 games. And wow. It's not by razor thin margin either. They are significantly, okay? So, for example, last week against Houston, they won that game. It was their first Big 12 win. They won by 10. They outgained Houston by 127. They lost the UCF game by 2 points, but they outgained the Knights by 122. Wow. They outgained BYU by 54, lost that one by 3 points. And this is the one that just blows my mind. They outgained BYU by 203 yards and lost by 8 points. Wow. So when you take those types of stats, the first thing is that at least my mind goes to is, okay, what's the turnover differential? And what are they in the red zone? The red zone, they did not do well, as you could imagine. As we talked about earlier, that they are towards the bottom of the Big 12 in red zone. In those 3 games that were one-score games, UCF, Baylor, and BYU, they were -5 in turnover differential. They had 5 turnovers and did not force a single one. So that's kind of been the biggest problem. Last week against Houston, they forced 3 interceptions and they won the game. So don't tell me that the turnover battle doesn't mean anything, because this week it seems like it's going to be a premium.
It means everything. Listen, you get if you force a turnover, right? That's an extra possession.
But it also matters too what you do after the turnover.
Well, no doubt about it. Listen, that's true. You get 3 turnovers and you turn them into 0 points, it balances itself out. Doesn't matter. You still don't want the 3 turnovers. But if you don't give up any points, okay. But you know what's funny about a turnover and you don't get these points? Now you talk about field position.
Yep.
Okay. Now you talk about field position, the punting or whatever the case may be. That's also a problem. So we have to be very careful that we don't get lured into any of that stuff. And if we do get turnovers, we have to turn those turnovers into points. That's important, because if you don't do that, it becomes problematic. Or God forbid, if we give up a turnover or 2, we can't allow them to turn those into points.
Yeah. So and if you go back to the Oklahoma game last week, and I don't know that it makes really much of a difference, but Oklahoma had the muff punt, remember? And what did West Virginia do after that? Nothing. They didn't move the ball at all. They had to kick a field goal, was no good, and they got no points out of it. So getting turnovers is one thing, doing something with them is another. But for the most part this season, West Virginia's done a really good job of taking care of the football. That's why I like their chances this week, really. And again, this Cincinnati team is better than the record indicates, because now when we get ready to flip over to the other side of the ball here, you'll see why. But the last thing I really want to note about Cincinnati is they, again, back to the Spider-Man meme, right? They want to control the clock. These 2 teams are the top 2 in the Big 12 in time of possession. So when you run the ball successfully like these 2 do, it's no wonder why they're towards the top. But going over to the other side, West Virginia offense, Cincinnati defense, this may be one of the best defensive fronts in the Big 12. And that sounds very, very weird to say for a team that, again, has won 1 Big 12 game. But the guy that spearheads this thing and could be maybe the best Big 12 defensive lineman is Dante Corleone. This guy is a run stuffer. He can create pressure in the passing game. He is just an absolute problem. And if you're a guy that likes to watch big battles in the trenches, boy, you got one here for you this weekend with Dante Corleone going up against Zach Frazier, an NFL on NFL matchup here. And there's probably going to be a few dozen scouts or so on in attendance for this game to watch these two guys play.
Easy. Well, you know what's funny about Dante? Here's the thing. Usually when you get a guy that's a pass rusher, can really get after the quarterback, they're not necessarily good run stoppers. But when you get a guy that can do both, he's going to make a pretty good living on Sunday, my friend.
Yeah.
Because he can do both. He can get after the quarterback and he can stuff the run. So, you know, that's interesting. And yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing that matchup. I really am. That's going to be a good one.
And for this side of the ball, this has to be the key, right? West Virginia and that offensive line, they've been dominant virtually all season long. Last week, they got whipped up front. There's no sugarcoating about it. They did not win one-on-ones. They didn't pull quickly enough. They didn't get down to the second level fast enough. Oklahoma was just straight whipping them every single snap, and it showed. The yards per play, the yards per rush, everything was way down. And that's why they kept putting themselves way behind the chain. So I think, to me, that's got to be the biggest matchup, at least on this side of the ball, right? It's got that offensive line has to show up and return to its form pre-Oklahoma to give themselves a chance to get back on track.
No, I agree. You got to win those battles, man. Those individual upfront battles you have to win. You have to win the line of scrimmage. I agree 100%. And if you want to do the things that are necessary to put you comfortably in a position to where you'll win this football game, it starts up front. It always does. It always will. So you have to run the ball well so play action matters.
Yeah.
And you have to run the ball well so eating up the clock and controlling the clock matters. If you can't do either one of those things, you're going to be in for a long day. And I don't care who you're playing against. That's true on the Pop Warner level. So it's very important that we control the line of scrimmage. We have to win the line of scrimmage, and I think that we will.
And it's going to be even more of a factor because we don't really know what C.J. Donaldson's status is going to be. He exited the game a little early last week, didn't practice on Sunday. They actually changed their practice schedule this week, Gene. They went on Sunday to kind of flush that Oklahoma game while it was still fresh. They wanted to clean everything up. They gave them the players off Monday and then back at it on Tuesday. So we'll see. I don't really want to put much stock into CJ not practicing Sunday because that's a quick turnaround. But we're going to find out later tonight. Coach Brown's going to say something on his radio show with Tony Caridi about his updated status. So they may have him, they may not. That's the question I want to pose to you here. If they don't have CJ Donaldson, what's the game plan for the Mountaineers offensively?
Well, I think it changed a little bit because, to be honest with you, the concept of I don't think banging inside is going to be an issue because our backs run well inside, regardless of their size. And of course, I think that's
he packs a punch.
That's attributed to our offensive line as well. But I'm gonna be honest with you, Schuyler. I don't think you change anything. Honestly, I don't think you change anything at all. I think it's a great opportunity to allow us to impose our will, to be honest with you, and to show people that we can run the football. If we got to go running back by committee, we can still run the football. If you don't have your big hammer back there. But I really believe it's going to come down to no matter who's in the backfield, again, you have to win the line of scrimmage. If you do that, it doesn't matter. I can get back there and suit up and touch the rock 10 times and probably get 100 plus behind that offensive line if we control the line of scrimmage. So I don't really think it's going to matter. I don't think we should, worry too much about having to change too many things. Whatever we do, let's just be consistent at it. That's important.
Yeah, and it's going to be big, too, that Garrett Green gets back on track, too, because that was his worst performance, and it's not even close. He was 10 of 27. That's 37% completion percentage. I mean, that's not good at all, obviously. He also threw an interception last week, only 154 yards. He just seemed out of sorts, really, after that first drive on out. Like it did not visually look like the same Garrett Green. Looked like he kind of got out of his mechanics a little bit, and it just felt like something was not marrying up, whether it was his shoulders and his feet at the same time. Like something was off with him. I don't know if it was the excitement, the build up to that game, and him trying to settle down. That's been a big problem with him. We always have heard from Coach Brown that sometimes he's a little too high and he needs to bring it down just a notch. And that's why I think you see some of these easy misses, right? There's layups that they're the swing passes out of the backfield, the quick slants, the easy may not be easy, but they're guys that are wide open 20 yards down the field heading toward the sideline, and he just misses them. I mean, those are passes you have to have to be able to move the ball, but he's got to put more touch on these things. Take a little bit of those MPHs off, because if you're throwing darts every single play, you can't always throw your 95-mile-an-hour fastball.
Absolutely. Listen, you are correct about that. And I also think he has to slow this thing down in his head. The game has to slow down in his head.
Yeah.
If he does that, you can again go through your progression comfortably and make the throws you need, make the necessary throws that you need to make. Because if not, he can't afford to not play well this weekend. He cannot afford not to play well to end with Baylor. You know, not that we're looking ahead, but these next 2 weeks are pivotal in his growth as a quarterback at this level to lead this team into bowl, you know, into the bowl week of practice and whoever we wound up playing in the bowl game or whatever. He has to understand this all starts and finishes with you. Any quarterback, this starts and finishes with them. So every practice moving forward, every rep moving forward, he should be working on his mechanics and he should be working on the timing in his head and how to slow that thought process down, which will help him be a little calmer in the pocket, not the happy feet and all of that, but a little calm. And like you said, make sure you're marrying your feet with your shoulders, with your eyes and your arm when you're making these throws. And I think he'll be a lot better off for that.
Yeah, the receivers got to help him out too. I mean, they missed a couple of passes last week. I mean, I would say 3 or 4, maybe. I think Neil said 5 or 6, but that seemed a little too high to me. I thought it was like more like 3 or 4. But either way, I mean, we're splitting hairs here. But the gist of it all is that Garrett Green has to play better. That's on him. Right. And I think he'd be the first one to tell you that. So last couple of things here. Just wanted to know, to get a little bit more info on Cincinnati. They are the 12th most penalized team in the Big 12 out of 14 teams. So that's been an issue for them at times. They do allow sacks. They've allowed 22 on the season, and against the run, they're pretty stout. They're 138 yards per game. Again, when you have Dante Corleone and some of those other guys that they have up front, it's no shock that they're top 5 in the league. Red zone defense is a struggle for them. So red zone offense and defense, they've been struggling. And 2 playmakers that I wanted to mention here is Deshaun Pace and Brian Threets, a veteran safety duo. Threets, if that's a familiar name for West Virginia fans, well, that's because he was down to pretty much West Virginia and Cincinnati and a couple other schools in his recruitment. So I think that's pretty much everything I wanted to hit on the matchup itself. Anything else from you?
Let me say this, because I don't, with the sake of not being disrespectful, let me just say this. Now, Cincinnati says this is a, you know, we're going to make this, you know, it's a series like this. This is, you know, us in West Virginia. Okay, we played, if I'm not mistaken, 19 times, correct?
20, 16, 3-1.
So we play, okay, so 16, 3-1. 16, 3-1. You got to be kidding me. Now, if the delusion is real, and to go more into the delusion, if you think you're going to come into Morgantown and get a win, nah. And I can probably tell you why not. Well, for one, this is Don Nehlen's weekend, man.
Yep,
this is Don Nehlen's weekend. So, yeah, you picked the wrong weekend to come to Morgantown.
And did you hear the full circle story about Don Nehlen being immortalized for the Cincinnati game? Because it's kind of cool. I think his first ever game that he coached was against Cincinnati. And then the same thing at WVU. Cincinnati, and now Cincinnati comes to town for his immortalization. So I think I'm 100% there with you with this can't be a rivalry. I mean, Cincinnati can think that, but to me, this has to be a situation where, look, if Cincinnati wins some games over the next few years against West Virginia and there's some bad blood and it's for some meaningful games, sure, anything can develop. But as of right now, there's nothing there. There's nothing there. So
16-3-1.
Exactly.
What's going to develop? What? What's going to develop? Are you kidding me? Because it's as high as West Virginia continue to climb, and as high as Cincinnati continues to climb, 16-3-1. That ain't going to change. In other words, you're not catching us in the series. Are you kidding me?
It would take, almost a decade and a half for them to do so. So,
okay, so that means every time we play each other, they have to beat us
exactly.
in the next freaking 15 years.
Right. So
I can't see that.
So this is actually probably a really good time to go and get into our Fire Me Up segment here for Eugene, giving us his pregame locker room speech to the Mountaineers before they take the field against them Cincinnati Bearcats that for some reason think this is going to be a rivalry. So, Gene, the floor is yours, my friend.
It's a daggone shame. A Bearcat is coming into Morgantown, West Virginia on Saturday with a Mountaineer with a fully loaded weapon. How interesting is that, Schuyler? A Bearcat. Wow. What a sad set of circumstances for a Bearcat. Not going to happen for you. And the reason why, listen, man, we have a lot that we have to jump back on and improve. Not to college football, not to the naysayers. It's really proving it to ourselves. We owe it to ourselves after coming off of a disgraceful, heartbreaking loss that we could have played better. We could have shown up in every area, every phase of the game to do that, to look better. We didn't do that. So unfortunately, we got to take it out on somebody, and a poor Bearcat is stumbling his way into Morgantown on Saturday. Wow. It's kind of funny. I'm not a hunter by any stretch of the imagination, but I can certainly see with a scope that poor Bearcat just stumbling and bumbling and rumbling his little self onto. Come on, man. And then that big, ferocious Mountaineer. Fully cocked and loaded, Schuyler. Could you see it? Could you just imagine that thing on a scope? Ain't gonna happen, man. Listen, I really do. I expected our offense to really grind this thing out in a way that just beat him up front. Just beat him up. Just punch him in the mouth up front. I really believe that. I think defensively, we get a chance to maul. We really get a chance to eat. You understand what I'm saying? We get a chance to eat because I'm expecting 3 sacks. I'm saying it. I'm expecting 3 sacks. I'm going to call out my corners, my safeties. Could I get at least 2 picks? 3 sacks, 2 picks on defense. Matter of fact, on offense, let's flip it around. Yeah, I'm a former tailback. So I need 2 backs. 2 backs rushing over 100 yards to help out, Green. Give Garrett Green some help. 2 backs over 100 yards. Let's get Green back into the feeling really comfortable. Let's say that joke puts up about 178, 200 yards in the air. I think we can do that. I think we can really dominate Cincinnati. We should dominate Cincinnati because once again, that poor Bearcat, man, listen. That poor Bearcat's going to leave Morgantown pretty much scalped. He's going to leave Morgantown scalped, battered and bruised, limping off, heading back to Cincinnati. We need to help him get back to Cincinnati. We won't beat him up too bad, but enough to let people know we will get our 7th win on Saturday, honoring Don Nehlen, bringing a win back home to Morgantown, West Virginia. And again, it's not about putting college football on notice. It's about playing Mountaineer football, getting back into the win column, closing the season out after beating Cincinnati, and then going to Baylor and doing what we need to do there. Not that we're looking ahead. We're not. But boy, that poor Bearcat. Let's go Mountaineers.
Oh, I love it. So let's go ahead and get into our weekly pick'ems for the week. Gene, it was a 3-2 week for both of us last week, so washes everything out, all the progress I thought it was going to make. And here we are back to square one. So you are 29-21. I'm 24-26. You got a 5-game lead on me. And folks, remember, if you want to participate, let us know your picks in the comments below on YouTube. And if you go 5 for 5, you get that coveted, elusive Eugene Napoleon autographed card. So we'll get that out to you in the mail if you are a winner. Doesn't matter how many winners, we will make it work. So let's go ahead and get into it. A little group of 5 action here, Gene. A little G5 love here. SMU at Memphis, a pair of 8-2 teams, 12 noon on ESPN2. This one is going to be a lot of fun to watch, man. These two offenses can really move the ball and score it, zip it around the yard. Memphis can really run the ball. This is a tough one, but I'm going to go with the road team here, and I'm going to go with the SMU Mustangs. Preston Stone, I think he's going to sling it all over the place. I'm going to say he has a 300-yard, 3-touchdown type of game. This is going to be like a 49-45 type of affair, so I'm going SMU in a shootout.
Wow, that sounds good. Not so fast, my friend.
Uh-oh. Oh, boy. That's the words I don't like to hear.
Listen, I'm so sorry. I got to go with the home team. I think Memphis will pull this out. I do think it's going to be a high-scoring affair because both these offenses can score. You're right. But I think Memphis is not going to be beat at home. I think they got something to prove. Good game, high-scoring game, but I'm going with Memphis.
In the ACC, UNC on the road. A ranked Carolina team is an underdog here to Clemson. How about that, Eugene? 3:30 ESPN. For a while there, it looked like Clemson may never get it figured out. May look like they wouldn't get to a bowl game. Boy, they've turned the corner just a little bit, wouldn't you say? And Carolina, they're scraping by. They're finding a way to stay alive in this ACC race. And my wife's not around, so Clemson Tigers.
Well, the sad thing about that is she's going to see this episode. So you're going to be able to go either way. But yeah. I'm going to help you out because I'm going to go right along with you. I think Clemson will get this game. I like UNC. Don't get me wrong. I really respect what they built there, but nah. Clemson is too much for them, man. I'm going with Clemson. So don't feel bad. I got you.
It's not the first time. It's not the last that I'll be in the doghouse, and I feel like I just inevitably live there. So, anyways,
I got you.
The Sunflower Showdown in the Big 12, Kansas State at Kansas, 7 o'clock FS1. This is always a fun matchup, and it's just the rivalry feel to it. It seems like it is truly like one of those games. It doesn't really matter how bad Kansas usually is. They usually play one of their best games against Kansas State. But I'm going to go with EMA here, Kansas State. I think they're clicking right now. That offense is a problem. Kansas, I don't know what their quarterback situation is as we tape this. It looks like they're optimistic that Jason Bean can go, but again, that's still their backup quarterback. I'm going Kansas State. They're still in the Big 12 race. They need this game.
For some odd reason, man, I want to do that, but for some reason, Kansas always freaking surprises you.
They do.
Reason. They understand, listen, we're at home. We know what this is. It's Kansas State. It's all right. It's our rivals. We can't allow them to come in here. I got to go with the Jayhawks, man. I'm so sorry. I got to go with the Jayhawks. I think they will pull this out. I think it's going to be a better game than people anticipate, but I think Kansas wins in the end.
Them poor Jayhawks. They're going down. Them poor Jayhawks. And hey, I'm actually okay with us picking opposite here because that at least gives me a chance, right. to maybe gain one on you. So out to the Pac-12 or the leftover bowl here, and that's well, actually not leftover. I was thinking Washington State. Washington at Oregon State, one of the leftovers. 7:30 on ABC. Washington very, very much alive in the college football playoff race. Oregon State, they believe that they can get to the Pac-12 championships, maybe New Year's Six love. This is a tough one because Oregon State, although they have a good record and although there's all this talk, about how well that they played all season long and they've got a big game at home here against Washington, the crowd's going to be crazy. I just feel like playmakers show up in the biggest moments, and I don't feel like any stage is too big for Michael Penix. Again, I'm not high on him as an NFL prospect, but I do think he's one hell of a college quarterback. And I'm going with Washington, but yeah.
What? Oh, listen, okay, that's another segment all by it. What? Okay, I'm definitely never. I went against Washington, I think 2 weeks ago, and lost that miserably. No, Washington all day long, twice on Sunday. Oregon State they don't have the horses. They just don't. And you're right. Big players play big under the lights in big situations. This is a good game. So Penix, 3+, 3 bills. He throws for 3 bills. Yeah, easy.
Awesome. So now the game that you're all here for, Cincinnati and West Virginia, 2:30 on ESPN Plus. The Mountaineers looking to get that 7th win of the season and mathematically stay alive for the Big 12 title race. So let's hear a word or two from the head coach, Neil Brown.
Very disappointed how we played on Saturday. Credit to Oklahoma. We caught them at the wrong time. They were juiced. We got their best. That's as good as they played. They were ready to go, and we weren't, and they got after us. Obviously, a former Big East foe. I think this is a game that it should kind of grow into a rivalry. It's obviously the closest proximity school in the Big 12 to us. And I think this is a game that both fan bases, as time goes on, this has an opportunity to grow into a rivalry game. It's a good win on the road for them last week. I think that was the best they've played, and I think they'll have some confidence rolling in here. Huge challenge, and I have zero doubt that our guys will bounce back. It's been a resilient group all year. We'll bounce back. We'll play well on Saturday, and finish strong here at home. Last home game and senior day, and probably the most important thing on Saturday is honoring Coach Nehlen.
All right, Gene, I went out on a limb last week, something I usually don't do when it comes to West Virginia. I go with what my gut tells me, and boy, did that just backfire. I picked the Mountaineers to get the upset over Oklahoma, and we all know how that turned out. So, yeah. But anyways, I don't think I'm going out on much of a limb this week, right? I picked them the last few weeks. I think this one is as easy as it gets, in my opinion. I think it is in terms of a close game. I think Cincinnati does hang around for a little while, but West Virginia, they end up winning this one by 2 scores. Too much to handle. I think Zach Frazier and that offensive line, they bounce back. They put on a good showing, especially Frazier against Corleone. Again, that's going to be a fun matchup to watch. I've got the Mountaineers.
Listen, I agree with you wholeheartedly on everything that you just said. You already know I got the Mountaineers, and I think it's going to be a really good game. It's going to be a really good atmosphere. God bless, like I said, Coach Nehlen being immortalized in Morgantown, this weekend, which is well deserved. So what a game to come to and watch and see and have a whole bunch of fanfare and have a great time as the Mountaineers just beat up on them poor Bearcats. Let's go Mountaineers.
I love it. The poor Bearcats. So that'll do it for us here today on the Walkthrough Game Day Show. Be sure to hit that subscribe button on YouTube at Mountaineers Now. Give us a follow on X at the same handle. And you can rejoin us on Saturday evening as we'll recap West Virginia and Cincinnati, break down all the action, dive into the numbers, and give our initial thoughts on what transpired there at Mountaineer Field. So thank you guys for watching. Again, don't forget to participate in our weekly pickems. Put your picks in the YouTube comments for a chance to win that Eugene Napoleon signed autograph. And also, while you're at it, go and get that jersey that he's donning right there. So that'll do it for us here today. For Eugene Napoleon, I'm Schuyler. Thank you for watching the Walkthrough Game Day Show presented by Country Roads Air Duct Clean.